Did you read it? The Egyptian Times and the World Times announced it. A whole nation in midday leaves Egypt, the first time in the history of mankind, 2,248 years since the creation of the world, and a whole nation leaves their slavery. It never happened before. Not only that, their enemies are running after them. They find themselves before the sea splits. They go through, and their enemies sink in the sea. Next thing you know, they take the treasures on their way, and Amalek, the sworn enemy of the Jewish people, attacks the Jewish people. They fight, they win. At this moment, the Pope of Midian, the greatest, richest, greatest authority in idol worship, reads the Egyptian Times and decides to convert to Judaism. What happened? Rashi tells us it wasn't only the miracle of the coming out of Egypt that aroused this desire to be close to God and become Jewish, but rather the war waged by Amalek. You see, some people read the news and others really read the news. When we read the news, another killing, another event, another miracle, another disaster, so much news, we don't pay attention. Yitro, the priest of Midian, the Pope of Midian, looked at the news and said, there's a problem here. How can you have such a magnanimous miracle and an enemy, Amalek, fights the Jewish people? What happened? At the moment of the splitting of the sea, there was a great revelation of God. But that revelation was not complete. And therefore, it gave some space for darkness, for the enemy to attack the Jewish people. When Yitro saw this, he said, 1 second. If there's something missing, what's missing? Why isn't God's revelation complete? And he thought to himself, I'm the element that's missing. I know all of the idol worship. If I'm going to recognize God, then God's revelation will come down to the lowest, most physical level. And at that moment, nobody will have any power before God's holiness. And that's why our sages teach us that till Yitro came to say Baruch Hashem, to recognize God from even the lowest level that he was at that moment, before he came, it was impossible to receive the Torah. The Torah, the gift of the Torah, is actually the marriage between the supernal world and the physical world. That marriage could only happen once the lower worlds were able to recognize God. And therefore, when you want to connect above, it's time for you to learn a lesson and to look at the world in a different light and understand that God is speaking to you to make that change and to recognize Him.